Our next capstone team is focused on an issue that is near and dear to the Joseph and Evelyn Lowery Institute. Namely, it was one of the named issues of our namesake, Dr. Joseph Lowery. Dr. Lowery viewed the vote as a sacred obligation, that looking at and dealing with voter suppression was something he dedicated his entire life to. He was the one who taught us the words, and he would speak about them frequently, about how we'd wept too bitterly, bled too profusely, and died too young for the right to vote. This was something that Dr. Lowery held to his heart, and it's something that we at the Lowery Institute, in terms of identifying, naming, and combating voter suppression, is something we will always strive to do, especially in the face of future elections. In that spirit, our civic engagement capstone team has spent the year working on voter suppression, trying to identify its new face, identify how it is operating in this country, in the state of Georgia, and what can be done about it. These scholars from a national team have looked at the issue nationally and asked themselves to critically identify what this is and what can be done about it. At this time, the next words you'll hear will be from our capstone speakers, David Valdez, a rising junior at Morehouse College, and graduating senior Deja Mason from Spelman College. The floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deja Mason, and I am a senior English major, comparative women's studies minor at Spelman College, and I am a scholar activist with the Civic Engagement Program at the Lowery Institute.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dave Valdez, and it is a pleasure to be here today. I am a sophomore political science major at Morehouse College, and I am a scholar activist with the Lowery Institute. I want to begin by asking everybody here a question. What is democracy? Now, we live in a nation that wears democracy as its badge of honor. We profess to be a beacon of democracy. The Declaration of Independence inspiringly outlines America's political philosophy. We all know the saying that all men are created equal. But I want us to focus on this lesser known point of this statement that states, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men and justice and derived from the consent of the governed. Now, this was stated in 1776. Not one woman voted. Not one person of color voted. Voting was restricted to white men who owned property. So, as a people, how do we deal with this contradiction?
Well, the reality of this question is that there are still discrepancies between our right to vote and the Constitution. The U.S. federal government attempted to fix this discrepancy by passing the 15th Amendment, granting formerly enslaved people the right to vote. We thought this led us to a true democracy. However, Jim Crow laws of the South enacted strict poll taxes and literacy tests that were in effect for the next 100 years into the civil rights era. So on paper, the U.S. said, come vote. But in reality, our nation ensured that certain people were met with certain obstacles to exercise that right. After years of fighting for voting rights, the 2013 Shelby v. Holder Supreme Court decision effectively gutted the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It allowed individual states to pass restrictive voting laws, especially in states across the South. Fast forward to 2021, when states across the nation inhibit voter rights further in response to the 2020 election. Georgia especially created bills that restricted absentee voting. We are all taught to celebrate civil rights, and it is worth celebrating. But if 50 years later, laws that are crucial to the Voting Rights Act disappear, how authentic is our democracy?
Today, we are in a moment of uncertainty. Authoritarianism is on the rise and looming over us, and I know that each and every one of you can feel the changes happening in our country and globally. There is less discourse, less communication, and most importantly, less love. This is why voting is important to us. And this is why the SB 202 bill is important to us. A portion of this bill states that you can't pass out food or water. Now imagine, you want to go vote, and you're waiting in a line for 7 hours. All you want to do is practice your right to vote. You're outside and sweating. Your mom can't bring you a water bottle. You must stay there. Now, if you are not convinced that this is voter suppression, I want to talk about the reasons these laws exist. The reasons these laws were put out were because of claims of voter fraud. Now, there is no convincing evidence of voter fraud, only strong feelings. So we want to continue to do the work that people have done in the past, the people that have sacrificed in the past for voting rights. We want democracy. Our research identifies voter suppression in the United States with an emphasis on Georgia. We have an emphasis on Georgia because it is an important state and has the most obvious and aggressive voter suppression tactics today. Our aim is to educate college students and voters in general.
In order to get a better understanding among students of color in Georgia, we met people where they were by interviewing our peers. Imagine this. You take the time out of your schedule to go vote only to be turned away at the polls. This happened to one of our interviewees, a student here at Clark Atlanta University. Christina is a senior political science major from Philadelphia. She later found out the reason why Clark students were being turned away at the polls was because Clark's campus is split into 2 districts. She became motivated and heavily involved in civic engagement and created her own organization that helped AUC students get out the vote. She's not the only one that got out the vote in this past election. In 2020, youth voters contributed a full 21% of Georgia voters. This is a significant increase from 2016, making it clear that young people are more motivated than ever to vote. Young people are often discouraged and dissuaded from voting, and they shouldn't have to jump through hoops to exercise their right to vote. But they must be motivated in spite of lack of access. Not everyone can be Christina, but if young people continue to exercise their right to vote, there will be more notable changes in our democracy. Young people came out in a big way in the 2020 election, but it doesn't stop there. There's a primary this month on May 24th, which will decide candidates for the gubernatorial race on November 8th. If young people come out in the same way, this could significantly change the results of this election. While every vote does count, effective voting rights must start at its institution. Congress must pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which protects marginalized voters by ensuring that states with a history of voter suppression receive pre-clearance before creating new voter laws. Young people must be more active in their democracy by imploring that their representatives restore the Voting Rights Act. More work must be done at the local level between HBCUs and state elected officials. There must be more communication. While we focused, voting must be accessible among students by putting polling locations on every college campus. While we focused on HBCUs, our research must continue by exploring more rural counties, especially college communities like Athens and Valdosta. While we began asking what democracy is, we discovered the importance of what democracy isn't. Unfortunately, anything rooted in injustice is unsustainable. In order to be considered a true democracy, everyone must have the equal access to the vote. This is especially true for the young people that will eventually inherit this nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of our capstones. I hope you have enjoyed this evening as much as I have. As you can see, the work at the Lowry Institute continues. We're going to continue to pursue new avenues to look at social justice causes. We're going to continue to train and empower students to look at these areas and try to find solutions for some of the most complex problems of our time. If you enjoyed what you saw and you're interested in being a part of our program, we're currently taking applications for the next year. Please feel free to click the link you'll see on the screen now. Thank you to all of our sponsors for each of these capstones. Thank you to our board of directors. Thank you to the Lowry Institute staff. To the students who worked so hard, I salute you. I'm proud of you. As you can see, your efforts were not in vain, and we cannot wait to read your reports. God bless you. Have a great evening. Thank you.